Now in Learning Objective C, I'm going to talk about how do you find the area of a triangle if you don't want to use the area equals 1/2 base times height formula. There's actually one that will work for every triangle. This particular formula you have to be very cautious of. The height component on here actually has to be an altitude that's dropped or something that creates a right angle. So that's the only time it can actually work. And let me show you on our example. Right now we said this is an obtuse triangle. But if I drop down an altitude and it's straight down, I now have the height. So that's going to be the height. If that's the height, this is the base. So I can actually start this formula. Its area equals 1/2. The base is 10.6. I don't know the height, so I have to find it. Well, I have enough information to find the height. I know how to use SOHCAHTOA. So why don't I come in for the height, and why don't I look at this angle and notice I have the opposite and the hypotenuse, so I can find the sine. So the sine of 32 degrees is equal to x over 7.9. If I type the sine of 32 degrees in my calculator and then come on in and multiply it by 7.9, I'll actually solve for the side length of x, and that's going to be 4.169. So then I can just put that back up here in the height. Now if we simplify this equation, what we're going to get is that the area is equal to 22.1 squared miles. Now this method isn't bad and it actually works, but there's actually an easier method to find the area of a triangle if we're not given a right angle right up front. So I want us to look at this example again, but this time we're going to use this formula right here. The area is equal to 1/2 AB, so that's similar to base times height, but what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by the sine of C. And let me show you how this formula works. Notice these are sides A and B. This is the angle related to the side I didn't use. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the area equals 1/2, and I'm going to choose to use these two measurements as my sides A and B. So I'm going to put 5.7 and 7.9. Now this is side C, which is this angle C right here. Basically, whichever two sides you choose to use, you use the angle created by that. So then I'm going to finish this off and put the sine of 101. Now in my calculator, if I take the sine of 101 and times it by these three numbers, I'm going to get that the area equals 22.1 squared miles, just like I did before. Okay, I'm going to show you that's not the only way I could have written this. What if I chose two different sides? It's still going to work. So what if I do 1/2, and this time for my sides I decide to use 10.6 and 7.9. So let's use 10.6 and 7.9. That just means I have to use the sine of this angle here that creates the two sides create. So sine of 32 degrees. If I do that, again, I'm going to get 22.1, the same answer. Yet, there's a third one I could have done. If I wanted to, I could have chosen to use the 5.7 and the 10.6 as my sides. So if we do that, you use the angle created by those two sides, so the sine of 47 degrees. All three of these are going to give you the exact same answer. You wouldn't do all three, you would just pick one of them and find the area of the triangle that way. Now I want to show you it actually even works on a good old just geometry problem you used to do, where here we do have a right triangle, and it's very easy to use 1/2 base times height on here. I'm just going to do 1/2, the base is 5, the height is 8, the answer is 20. But I could have used this new formula. What I'm choosing to do for this one is I'm going to use 5 and 8 as my sides, and therefore this angle here of 90 degrees. So what I type is 1/2, my AB is 5 and 8, and then the sine of 90 degrees. Well, the sine of 90 degrees, by the way, is the number 1. So this changes to 1, and then we're just back to the good old geometry formula, and we get the answer of 20. So this formula here that we learned today is actually even better than this one that you've known for years. This will work on any triangle whatsoever. You will not have to drop an altitude to do it, and it can really save you some time.